Mother. The mother is the first relationship named in Quran 423, and that placement is not accidental. In Islamic law, the prohibition on marrying one's mother is absolute, unconditional, and eternal. It cannot be lifted by any circumstance, contract, or ruling. The Arabic term used is ummahatukum, meaning your mothers, and scholars have always interpreted this to extend upward through every generation without limit. Your maternal grandmother is forbidden. Your paternal grandmother is forbidden. Their mothers above them are forbidden. The lineage ascends infinitely, and the prohibition ascends with it. What makes this particularly notable is that the prohibition is not contingent on whether the mother actually raised you. A biological mother who abandoned her child at birth and had no role in that child's upbringing remains permanently forbidden under all four major legal schools, Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi'i, and Hanbali, without dispute. The bond is defined by blood, not by relationship history. Daughters. If the mother prohibition defines the upward limit of lineage, the daughter prohibition mirrors it going downward, and it is equally absolute. Quran 423 uses the Arabic unmahatukum, your daughters, and like the mother prohibition, scholars extend this infinitely down the line. Granddaughters are forbidden. Great-granddaughters are forbidden. Every female descending from you through your sons or daughters falls under this prohibition permanently. One area where the major legal schools have engaged in some discussion is the status of daughters born outside of wedlock. The majority position across the Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi'i, and Hanbali schools holds that an illegitimate daughter is still forbidden, because the biological reality of descent does not change regardless of the circumstances of birth. The blood relationship is the determining factor, and once that exists, the prohibition exists with it. Sisters. The sister prohibition is where Islamic law begins to demonstrate something striking. Partial blood is treated identically to full blood. A full sister sharing both your mother and your father is obviously forbidden under Quran 423. But a half-sister who shares only your father is equally forbidden. A half-sister who shares only your mother is equally forbidden. The Arabic ummahatukum encompasses all of these categories without distinction. There is no weighting system where a half-sister is half as prohibited. The logic is that any shared lineage, even a single common parent, creates a bond that the law treats as complete for purposes of prohibition. All four major madhabs are in full agreement on this, and there is no recorded scholarly dissent on the point. Paternal and maternal aunts. Quran 423 names these two categories explicitly by separate Arabic terms. Ummahatukum for your father's sisters, and khalatukum for your mother's sisters, making them among the most clearly delineated prohibitions in the verse. Both your paternal aunts and your maternal aunts are permanently forbidden, and this extends upward to their generation's equivalents as well. Your grandfather's sisters and your grandmother's sisters fall under the same prohibition by scholarly extension through analogy. The reasoning is consistent with the broader framework. These women occupy a protected generational position within the family structure, and the prohibition secures the integrity of that structure. There is universal agreement across the schools on the aunts themselves. The extension to great aunts is derived through legal reasoning, rather than explicit Quranic text, but it is accepted across the major traditions. Brothers' daughters and sisters' daughters. These are your nieces, and they are forbidden under Quran 423 through the Arabic phrases Banat al-Akh, daughters of the brother, and Banat al-Ukhta, daughters of the sister. What is worth noting here is that this prohibition operates diagonally across the family tree, rather than vertically. It is not simply about direct lineage going straight up or straight down. It captures the branching lateral relationships as well. The daughters of your brothers and the daughters of your sisters are forbidden, and by extension their daughters are forbidden too. This coverage is what closes the family tree comprehensively. Between the upward prohibitions covering mothers, grandmothers, and aunts, and the downward and diagonal prohibitions covering daughters, granddaughters, and nieces, Quran 423 creates a complete circle of protection around the biological family unit with no gaps left open. Milk mother. This is where Islamic law introduces a category that surprises many people encountering it for the first time. A woman who breastfed you during infancy is your milk mother, and she is as forbidden to you as your biological mother. The Quran states this explicitly in 423 using the phrase ummahatukum allati ardarnakum, your mothers who suckled you, placing milk mothers in the same sentence and the same legal category as blood mothers. What this means in practice is that rada, the Arabic term for breastfeeding kinship, creates an entirely parallel family tree of prohibited relationships. The one significant area of scholarly disagreement is the threshold. The Shafi'i and Hanbali schools require at least 5 confirmed sucklings for the prohibition to be established, based on a hadith in Sahih Muslim, while the Hanafi and Maliki schools hold that any amount of nursing during the infancy period is sufficient to create the bond. The underlying prohibition itself is not disputed, only the minimum threshold to trigger it. Milk sisters. Once the milk mother prohibition is established, it extends outward in exactly the same way that blood relations do. Any girl who was breastfed by the same woman who nursed you becomes your milk sister, and she is forbidden under the same framework. This is grounded in a hadith recorded in both Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, in which the Prophet Muhammad stated that what is forbidden by lineage is forbidden by breastfeeding. That single principle does the heavy lifting. It means you do not need a separate ruling for every possible milk relation, because the mirror logic applies across the board. Milk sisters, milk aunts, milk nieces, all follow from this principle. The practical consequence historically was that Islamic scholars encouraged families to document and communicate nursing arrangements carefully, because 2 people from entirely different families could unknowingly be milk siblings, making any future marriage between them invalid. Wife's mother. The prohibitions based on marriage rather than blood begin here, and the mother-in-law ruling contains a detail that distinguishes it sharply from the prohibitions that follow. According to Quran 423 and the established interpretation across all major schools, the mother of your wife becomes forbidden to you the moment the marriage contract, the AQD, is signed. Consummation is not required. The contract alone is sufficient. This means that if a marriage contract is completed and then dissolved the very next day, before any consummation has taken place, the wife's mother remains permanently forbidden regardless. The prohibition is triggered by the contract, not by the physical relationship, and once triggered, it cannot be reversed. The same logic extends upward through the wife's maternal and paternal grandmothers, making them permanently forbidden as well from the moment the contract is signed. Stepdaughters. The stepdaughter ruling is one of the most carefully worded in Quran 423, because unlike the mother-in-law prohibition, this one comes with an explicit condition. The Arabic phrase wa raba'ibukum allati fi hujurikum min nisa'ikum allati dakhaltum bihin translates roughly as your stepdaughters who are under your guardianship, born of your wives with whom you have consummated the marriage. The key phrase is dakhaltum bihin, with whom you have consummated. If a man marries a woman who has daughters from a previous relationship, those daughters become forbidden to him if the marriage is consummated. However, if the marriage contract is made, but the marriage ends before consummation, the stepdaughters do not become permanently forbidden. This makes the stepdaughter prohibition one of the clearest examples in Islamic law of a conditional prohibition, one where the Quran itself specifies the triggering condition rather than leaving it to scholarly interpretation. Daughters-in-law. Quran 423 forbids hala'il abna'ikum alladhina min aslabikum, the wives of your sons who are from your own loins. The phrase min aslabikum, meaning from your own loins, is deliberate and significant. It explicitly restricts the prohibition to biological sons, excluding adopted sons from this category. This distinction was directly relevant to a situation in early Islamic history, addressed in Quran 33:37, which dealt with the marriage of the Prophet Muhammad to Zainab bint Jahsh, following her divorce from Zayd ibn Haritha, who had been the Prophet's adopted son. Classical scholars of tafsir, including Ibn Kathir, explain that the verse was in part clarifying that adoption does not create the same legal bonds as biological descent, and therefore the wife of an adopted son does not fall under this prohibition. The prohibition itself, applying to biological sons' wives, extends downward to grandsons' wives as well. Two sisters simultaneously. This prohibition is categorically different from everything that has come before it, and understanding the difference matters. All the previous prohibitions are permanent. Those women can never be married regardless of any change in circumstances. This one is situational. Quran 4:23 states, وَأَن تَجْمَعُوا بَيْنَ الْأُخْتَيْنِ, that you may not combine between two sisters, meaning the prohibition is specifically against holding both simultaneously in a marriage. If one sister dies, or if she is divorced, a man may then marry her sister. The relationship itself is not the problem. The simultaneity is. Scholars extended this principle by analogy to a woman and her aunt. A man cannot be simultaneously married to a woman and her paternal or maternal aunt, based on hadith evidence, though this extension is sourced from hadith rather than directly from the Quranic text. The underlying logic in all these cases is the protection of kinship bonds from the strain that such arrangements would inevitably create. Married women. Quran 4:24 opens with wa al-muhsanat min an-nisa, and the married women, listing them among those who are forbidden. The logic is straightforward. A woman who is already in a valid marriage contract with another man is unavailable, and entering into a marriage with her would constitute a direct violation of that existing contract. This prohibition dissolves the moment the woman's marriage ends through divorce or the death of her husband, after which she becomes permissible subject to the waiting period known as the iddah. The verse continues beyond this general rule, and classical scholars, including Al-Tabari and Ibn Kathir, devoted significant commentary to its full scope and the conditions under which it applies. What is consistent across the tradition is that the sanctity of an existing marriage contract is treated as a legal fact that cannot simply be bypassed, and marrying a woman while that contract remains in force is treated as a foundational prohibition rather than a minor irregularity. If you want to see more, click the video on screen now.